recognition and a call to action. Today, we honor and pay tribute to women in the liberation struggles whose unbreakable resilience and brave actions set the tone for democracy and empowerment in a democratic South Africa. We are proud, President, as a province, to be the host of this important day on this important 70th anniversary. We are not audience, but we call this day can be celebrated by some sections of our society, and some sections of our society continue to boycott national days. These are national days, and these are days for all of us. They can't claim they can't come to rallies because yesterday they were in a rally in Johannesburg and they were there in their numbers. But we must also record, Honorable President, that South Africans celebrate this day with pride, and for that we are all proud of it. To all our women, you are seen, you are celebrated, and you are truly appreciated. You are not just part of our future, you are creating that future. On behalf of our government, you are warmly welcomed here in Tshwane, Gauteng Province.
Thank you so much, Program Directors, His Excellency. Let me observe the protocol that has been put before us. Before I deliver our preamble, let me say, President Cyril Ramaphosa, democracy did not promise that centuries of patriarchy, racism, and economic exclusion would disappear simply because it gave women reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy. It gave those previously pushed to the margins, including LGBTI women, a language which it insists I belong to. That distinction matters. The persistence of inequality is not an argument for abandoning our constitutional democracy. It is an argument for completing its work. Our task is to close the distance between the rights we have won and the lives of our people are actually able to live. We are committing to what we have made as promised in our Constitution. The unfinished business of our democracy, and indeed what makes the Women's Day different. As we mark 70 years since the Women's March and 30 years since the adoption of our Constitution, we do so in the first Women's Day since gender-based violence and femicide was classified as a national disaster. We therefore stand between achievements and unfinished business, but there is another reason why 2026 demands something particular from this generation of women. The gains we have made are no longer only incomplete, some of them are actively under attack. Across the world, we are witnessing an increasingly organized anti-gender movement seeking to reverse the hard-won gains of freedom. It often arrives in language that sounds familiar and comforting in the name of family values, religion, culture, and the protection of children. But beneath some of these campaigns lies the politics of fear and misinformation that seeks to restrict sexual and reproductive health and rights, erode bodily autonomy, and attack on persons and return decisions about women's bodies and lives to institutions and individuals other than women themselves. We must resist the false choices between our values and our rights. African families do not become stronger when women are less or have less agency. Culture is not protected by inequality. Faith is not strengthened by discrimination. And children are not protected by denying them knowledge, health care, or the ability to live without fear. The women of 1956 understood something that the women of 2026 must remember. Rights that were fought can also be lost. So our generation therefore inherits not only the responsibility to extend freedom, but also the responsibility to defend freedom. We cannot allow misinformation to persuade us to surrender constitutional gains of which generations before us sacrificed so much. The Constitution belongs to those who came before us, but we hold it in trust for those who will come after us. Our daughters must inherit more freedom than we did, not less. The task of our generation is to take the promise already written in our Constitution and make it a lived reality in the household, in the workplace, in the clinic, in the classroom, in the farm, in the boardroom, and in the streets, because the women of 1956 fought against the past that determined where black women could. Let us remember and hear the voices of women. It is possible. And we take this moment to celebrate the women of our country. And as we do so, I invite you to recite with me as I request all of us to rise, and we shall not have movements as we recite with me the preamble of our Constitution. And you will recite with me and say, "We, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustice of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. We therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this Constitution as the supreme law of the Republic, so as to heal the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice and fundamental human rights, lay the foundations for a democratic and open society in which government is based on the will of the people, and every citizen is equally protected by the law. Improve the quality of life of all citizens and free the potential of each person, and build a united and democratic South Africa, able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the family of nations. May God protect our people. Nkosi sikelele Africa. Morena boloka setjhaba sa heso. God save South Africa. God bless South Africa. Mudimu Fatuzeza Africa. Hosi Katekisa Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mutsike. We will now move. The artists, are they ready? Okay. While they're still setting up, let me quickly recognize and welcome ministers and deputy ministers that are here. And before I do that, I'm informed that the first DSG of the African National Congress, Menomvula Mugwanyani, is also present here. Artists, please be ready. Artists, be ready. Okay. Ms. Tembis Mwelani, she's here. Minister Tembis Mwelani, she's here. And the Deputy Manamela is here. Tate Ronald Lamona is here. Mekansani Mamunu Bukubai is here. Mekumbuzo Chaveli is here. The DJs themselves, Pemima Georgina is here. Minister Dana Pule is here. We'll now move to deputy ministers who are present. Deputy Nizike Moli Udeng. Deputy Minister Tandi Mohamed Salah. Deputy Minister Lindiwe Chalin Chali. Deputy Minister Pinky Kekana. Deputy Minister Andris Nell. And Minister Nomakosa Zanamet is also here. Thank you very much. Over to you, artists. Okay, while they're still setting up. Okay.
Queen Malibongwe, libongwe, malibongwe, igama lamakhosikazi. Pendukan, back to your chairs now. Malibongwe, 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 malibongwe. Igama lamakhosikazi, malibongwe. Igama lamakhosikazi, malibongwe, 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 libongwe, malibongwe. Igama lamakhosikazi, malibongwe. Igama lamakhosikazi, malibongwe, 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 malibongwe. Wathinta abafazi, wathinta abafazi. Abanye bathulile njena, kanti nizokwenzani la? Wathinta abafazi, wathinta abafazi, wathinta abafazi. Basopa, basopa, basopa. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was the journey of women artists that was celebrating from the time from Kwaito to various generations. Sagqibezela yethu ke imalibonga igama lamakhosikazi. Wathinta abafazi. We'll now get a message of support as I acknowledge the Premier of Free State, Mema Queen, who is also here with us, as I acknowledge the Secretary General of the ANC Women's League, who's also the acting president, Umam Nokuthula Nqaba, as I acknowledge the chairperson of the NYDA, Dr. Sunshine Yende, as I acknowledge the Deputy Executive Mayor of Johannesburg, Meloiso Masugu, as I acknowledge the MMC for Roads and Transport here in Tshwane, Metlangi Mukhale, as I also acknowledge the MMC for Social Development, Auspalisa Mudise. All the diplomatic corps have been acknowledged, and we appreciate that you are here with us today. Make them to sit comfortable. We will now take a message of support from our young girl who is a global champion for girls and the youngest Nobel laureate Her name is Miss Malala Yousafzai. Is she here? Halala, yanga, halala. Halala, the young person, halala. Arim Shapele Matsoho.
Good afternoon, everyone. His Excellency President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, Speaker of National Parliament, distinguished ministers and deputy ministers present, Premier of Gauteng, senior officials, Ma'am Sophie Williams de Bruyn, and other women stalwarts and leaders, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. I am so honored to join you in celebrating this historic moment in South Africa's history, the 70th anniversary of the Women's March, when 20,000 brave women took to the streets to protest apartheid and demand equal education, pay, and rights. It took incredible courage to speak out in 1956, 4 decades before the end of apartheid. And the risks were greatest for Black South African women, as they still are today, who faced not only the racial discrimination of apartheid, but the added burdens of being women in a patriarchal society. Yet, they chose to lead and demanded to be seen. It is their legacy of courage that brings me back to South Africa today. This is my second trip to your beautiful country. I was honored to be here 3 years ago to deliver the Nelson Mandela Lecture. And both times, I am joined by advocates for girls' education and campaigners for women's rights in Afghanistan. We have come not only to mark this historic anniversary, but to learn from you, from elders like my mentor, Madame Sophie. We want to understand how South Africans organized and how you endured generation after generation until the world had no choice but to listen. From your legal experts, we have heard how discrimination was codified in law under apartheid, and how international law and global pressure helped dismantle it. Yesterday, we met with high school students to learn how they are carrying South Africa's legacy forward, taking actions on the challenges shaping their young lives. South Africa has inspired movements around the world, from the fight for independence and liberation across Africa to the Palestinian people's ongoing pursuit of dignity, justice, and freedom from Israel's genocide.
Thank you very much to the youngest women, our girl child who is a champion. Let me now invite a message of support from the Progressive Women's Movement, Miss Ngaba. Miss Ngaba from Progressive Women's Movement. Where are you? Oh, there's Miss Ngaba. Malibongwe! Malibongwe!
Malibongwe, Program Director, the President of the Republic, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, Speaker of the National Assembly and the chairperson of the NCOP, ministers and deputy ministers present here today. A very special tribute to Mama Sophie, who is with us today. Premiers and members of various legislative houses, our mayors and members of Executive Council, esteemed guests from the African continent and members of the diplomatic corps, our traditional leaders, the custodians of our beautiful motherland, the leaders of various political parties representing our democracy, people of South Africa who are gathered here today, and those who are watching from home. Permit me to greet you all on this historic occasion in the history of this beautiful country of ours. Program Director, we converge today on the grounds of an institution that once symbolized the most vicious corridor of decision-making for the total extermination of the black majority of our motherland. Mr. President, as we gather here today on a Sunday, one realizes that who let the march never died, but multiply. And everyone thought the battle was over. We are still staggering in the intoxication of colonialism of a special type. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the historic Women's March, and we honor the enduring legacy of women whose sacrifices, leadership, and commitment laid the foundation for the democratic South Africa, which we celebrate today. We assemble here today at a gathering place of the 20,000 detachment of women who descended on this very site under the leadership of Mama Lillian Ngoyi, Helen Joseph, Rahima Musa, Sophie de Bruyn, and Lillian Deiderick. The generations of 1956 rejected the brutal and inhumane system of apartheid, and they took up arms and marched to this very institution to challenge the mighty Strydom and his lieutenants. Yet today, we stand here at the very place of defiance. We celebrate the sacrifice we made exactly 70 years ago. We ululate in salutation to their unmatched bravery and would like to take this opportunity and convey a message of strength and good health to Mama Sophie de Bruyn and a few surviving stalwarts of the Federation as we continue to tap in their unparalleled wisdom. Our freedom is not free as long as we continue to have a society that has inherited pervasive patriarchy and gender injustice, in which the empowerment of women, the vulnerable groups, and the safety and development of the girl child remain non-essential. Indeed, we are standing on their bold shoulders, and ours is to defend the gains and appreciate the opportunities and advances made by our government thus far, where we witness voices of women in boardrooms, where strategic decisions are taken in both the private and the public sectors. However, women cannot rest until the complex systems of power relations, which is embedded in the DNA of patriarchy to undermine the capabilities of women, is completely dismantled. Our country's economy is still unstable, and South Africa is confronted with a high rate of unemployment, abject poverty, dysfunction in family units, disorientation of social and moral fiber, and these social economic ills that burden women in our society. Scarcity of resources and lack of any source of income has led to family breakdowns with divorces, unprecedented levels of school dropouts, a depressed population of young university graduates who are lingering with advanced degrees, qualifications, but without jobs. Our nation has a community of unemployed graduates who have transitioned to drug addiction and resorted to criminal acts to survive, whilst children and women become victims of gender-based violence and femicide. These social ills have earned us a status of a nation that is a haven of human trafficking, statutory rape, and teenage pregnancy in the eyes of the world. And this defeats the purpose of our world-acclaimed progressive constitution and is a serious indictment on the sacrifices of the 1956 generation. In the recent past, our government made commitments after the declaration of the gender-based violence and femicide as a national disaster, but there was never any funding for the implementation. We had several engagements with government departments, including the IMC mandated by the president on GBVF. But to no joy until we decided to picket this past Monday at the National Treasury Office down the road, putting pressure on the Minister of Finance to unlock government purse to save women and vulnerable groups from the scourge of GBVF. This funding will assist President to address crime and criminality, deal with the scourge of drug abuse, create safe homes, reclaim our streets and communities, but most importantly, combat the merciless killing of elderly women in rural areas such as Lusikisiki and Flagstaff in the Eastern Cape and elsewhere in the country. Although we welcome the appointment of the National Council of Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, but Mr. President, statutory bodies do not yield practical results, but just piece of legislation. As I learned, I have a message to our president that the nation is eagerly waiting for your address, believing that the means to address gender-based violence and femicide will be announced soon. And our demand is for discretionary funding to be made available for expeditious implementation of the declaration of GBVF as a disaster with immediate effect. We make a clarion call to women of this country of all races, since GBVF does not discriminate against color, creed, and economic means, to unite in our diversity and speak in one voice. Since we are in the majority in our population, we therefore unapologetically demanding funding for the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. In memory and preservation of the legacy of the 1956 generation, and in defense of the 30th celebration of our progressive constitution, let our conscience be revived today by this significant milestone of our political journey and exercise hard-earned right to vote in the upcoming local government election on November 4th, 2026. Wathinta abafazi, wathinta imbokodo, mabaphathe mama, mabaphathe, mabaphathe mama, mabaphathe. We are the members of the society and we are alive. Amandla.
The veterans of 1956 who are from Northwest, I'm not sure if Gauteng, they did come, as we welcome Miss Eugene Plachis and Mama Sophie de Brain, who are going just to share a message with us. Let me start with Mama Eugene Plachis. She's speaking on behalf of Mama Lillian Dieterichs. Over to yourself. You are very tall. Will you be able to?
Program Directors, His Excellency, President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, His Excellency, Deputy President of the Republic, of South Africa, Mr. Paul Masatile, honorable ministers and deputy ministers, honorable members of parliament, provincial leaders as led by premiers, mayors of respected municipalities, members of the diplomatic corps, distinguished guests, fellow South Africans, ladies and gentlemen. Most importantly, greetings to the only surviving mother and comrade amongst those 20,000 women who marched on that heroic day, Mrs. Sophie de Bruyn. May you live longer, Mama, to tell future generations of how far we have come with our ANC-led freedom struggles. Good morning. It is both a great honor and an emotional moment for me to stand before you today on behalf of my late mother, Mrs. Lillian Diedericks, one of the organizers and leaders of the historic 1956 Women's March. As a matter of fact, she led the Eastern Cape women to this iconic march. On behalf of the Diedericks family, I wish to thank you, Mr. President, for the good heart you have demonstrated both with the national orders and the ultimate wish of our mother that has always dreamed of, that of correcting history and bringing justice to a name by adding a fifth statue in addition to the 4 statues. Honorable President, 2018, you promised when you gave the orders. I trust it will happen, not posthumously for me. My mother dedicated her life to justice, equality, and the liberation of South Africa. She often reflected with great pride on the unity and courage shown by the women of this country, particularly the work undertaken through the Federation of South African Women, FEDSAW, which she was a member of, and the trade union she was an organizer of, Food and Canning Workers Union. She would fondly recount how women in Port Elizabeth worked tirelessly, baking and selling cookies, and raising funds within their communities to hire an entire coach so that they could travel to Pretoria and join thousands of women at the Union buildings 70 years ago in defense of the dignity and the rights of South African women. One question: how far have we come in defense of the dignity of our women? For our family, today's recognition carries profound meaning. My mother passed away with one unfulfilled wish. When the statues commemorating the leaders of the 1956 Women's March were revealed here at the Union buildings in 2016, she was deeply saddened that her contribution had not been recognized, despite being among the women standing in the front row of the iconic photograph that has become a symbol of that historic march. She never sought personal glory. She simply hoped that history would tell the complete story and that her contribution alongside those of many courageous women who led the march, would be acknowledged. As a family, we therefore are deeply grateful that today her name is finally being recognized as part of the important national commemoration 70 years later. Let us no more say 4 women led the march, but that they were indeed 5. Let the false narrative die today, and that we remain true to the struggle. May my mother's legacy, together with all the women of 1956, continue to inspire South Africa for generations to come. The spirits of Lillian Hingoi, Rahima Musa, Lillian Diedericks, let their spirit rise up for our new generation so that our children and their children, the girl child, are not subjected to GBV. With this, I thank you, Malibongwe. You strike a woman. You strike a rock. Amandla.
Awethu amandla wathinta abafazi. Can all the women who are sitting outside please come back into the tent? Mayor Sophie de Bruyn is about to address us. Mama. You can come forward, Mama. It's your turn now. Malibongwe!
These things not fly. Malibongwe! Ligama la makosikasi. Watinti wipafazi. Malibongwe. The President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellencies, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, our host, Minister Gayton McKenzie in absentia, the Premier of our province of Gauteng, Panyazi Losifia, Premiers of all provinces, ministers, and deputy ministers, veterans of our struggle, our dignitaries, members of the diplomatic corps, our veterans here present today, all protocol observed. But before I start to say anything, we have lost one of our veterans from the Eastern Cape. I think it's 2 months ago. The name is Mamdepua Kondile. I think we all know her. And I want us to have a moment of silence, and also for all our veterans that have passed along their journey. Thank you.
Moment of silence means you are quiet.
Thank you very much. Warm greetings to all who are here present today, and happy Women's Day. I stand before you all today with a heart that is simultaneously bursting with pride and joy, whilst feeling waves of sadness. 70 years ago, on this very day, the 9th of August, 1956, 22,000 of us marched to these hallowed grounds, to these union buildings which were then the bastion of apartheid. Because I was only 18 years old then, and many of my compatriots are sadly no longer with us, it has always been an honor to represent the collective leadership of the march and the 20,000 women. I'm standing here as their representative. And what I am saying here today is what they would have said to you if they were alive. We were young, we were afraid, but we were unified and determined. When we stood undaunted in silence for 30 minutes, the world trembled, it took note. We confronted the apartheid regime and boldly said, Stridom, you have targeted the woman, you have struck a rock, and we will crush you. The joy of that solidarity, the triumph of knowing who could break the back of oppression, is a fire that still burns deep within me even today. And we emerge from the darkness with a firm belief that our daughters, our children would walk in absolute freedom from the triple yoke of oppression as a race, class, and gender, which we experienced under apartheid. But today, as I look at our beautiful country, my heart is heavy. The freedom we marched and for what we bled is in reality a painful paradox. How can we fully celebrate our past victories when our present realities is so deeply disappointing and distressful? We fought to banish the past laws, yet today our women are prisoners in their own homes. Gender-based violence continues to cast a dark cloud on our society. And every single day I weep for the girl child, the daughters, the mothers, and grandmothers who are abused, violated, and silenced. This is not the freedom we march for. We fought to dismantle the yokes of the systemic oppression of women as a race, class, and gender. Yet today we feel the crucifixion of entrenched poverty, lack of clean drinking water, homelessness, and systemic corruption. When people steal money allocated for education, health, for housing and infrastructure, they are in reality stealing education, stealing health and roads. These are real victims of corruption, and furthermore, they are stealing from you and me who pays our taxes. It is also very disappointing that the democratic South Africa is still the most unequal country in the world. The face of poverty and inequality in our country is mainly black, female, and young. The impact of spatial racial segregation is still deeply entrenched. And as we also mark the 5th anniversary of June 16, when in 1976 the youth picked up the mantle from us, youth unemployment remained stubbornly high, ranking South Africa very high globally. And to see the wealth of our nation stolen by people entrusted with power, while ordinary people starve, while our youth face staggering unemployment, is a profound betrayal of the 1956 sacrifices. It sears the heart to witness the ideal of our liberation, for which we gave our youth, our blood was shed and other sacrifices made, is being derailed and wrecked by the staggering greed of a few. And yet, even when these crowds, my spirit refuses to break and give up. And my happiness comes back from looking at you, the women of today, all of you. You are still the rock. You are still resilient. Despite the failures of our leadership and the weight of these struggles, you continue to hold our families and communities together. Your courage is the beacon of hope and the light that keeps this country moving forward. And to the officials, the politicians, the dignitaries that are here today, I challenge you to look into the eyes of women here and see their courage, their determination, their fortitude, their hope, and moral mettle that birthed the democracy. Do not let our sacrifices be in vain. Cleanse your hands of corruption. Protect our women. Feed our children. Have moral compass and backbone. And match the bravery of 1956 with bold, honest, and accountable leadership. And to the ordinary citizens of our country, in particular women, do not give up hope. Your vote, your voice, and your unity are your critical weapons. We handed you a free country. It is now up to you to make it a safe and prosperous one. Let us march forward once more, not against past laws, but this time against crime and insecurity, poverty, corruption, unemployment, homelessness, violence, and the many, many ills that restrict your future, your safety, your freedom, and your prosperity. The fire ignited in 1956 cannot be extinguished. And to the young women here today, do not wait for anyone's permission. Stand up. Use your voice and fight for your future. Fight against poverty and abuse. just like we fought against apartheid. And together let us finish the march. So we began 70 years ago. Let the spirit of the 1956 rise again in each of your hearts. And I would be remiss if I do not express solidarity with the women and children in Palestine who are being subjected to genocide and apartheid, both of which are classified as crimes against humanity by the United Nations and the world. In the words of our icon, our former President Mandela, and I quote, "Our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians," unquote. And in conclusion, I would like to make a special plea. There were many women who courageously took part in the march on the 9th of August in 1956. And I think I was alerted about a group that walked in here. Here they are sitting, all the mamas that are still alive. And there are those whose names must be recorded in the annals of our history to honor them by name. This could be your grandmother or any of your relatives. And if you know any of those courageous women, please kindly submit their names to the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, and we want all of them to be remembered. And we really need to honor our unsung heroines. Thank you very much. Watinti Bafasi, Watinti Bokoto. You strike a woman, you strike a rock, and you will be crushed. Malibongwe. Thank you.
Watinta bafaz, watinta bafa, watinti mbogoto a useng, watinta bafazi, watinti mbogoto a usenkatazwe mioha, usenkatazwe mioha, usenkatazwe mioha. Usenkatazwe mioha, watinta bafazi, watinti mbogoto hau, watinta bafazi, watinti mbogoto.
Malibongwe, baphila bafazi. Deme machele, baphila la bafazi, mahlele machele. O thina siyabuza, o thina sinemibuzo, o thina siyabuza, o thina sinemibuzo. Oh, baphila bo mama, babe phelele machele. Baya phila bo mama, ababe phelele machele. Oh, thina siyabuza, oh, thina silemibuzo, oh, thina siyabuza, oh, thina sinemeboso. Babe falelwe machele, baphina labo mama, babe falelwe machele,
Oh thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Oh thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Ngoba thina siyabuza. Thina sinemibuzo. Oh thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Ngoba thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Oh thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Ngoba thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Oh thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Oh thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Ngoba thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Baphina labo mama babevalelwe majele. Ngoba thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Oh thina siyabuza. Oh thina sinemibuzo. Bazokhala abantu bathi maye. Bazokhala abantu bathi maye. Maye 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 maye maye. Maye maye. Bazokhala abantu bathi maye. Bazokhala abantu bathi maye. Maye maye. Maye maye. Maye maye. Maye maye maye. Maye maye. Maye maye. Maye bazokhala abantu bathi maye. Bazokhala abantu bathi maye. Bathi maye. Maye move. Maye move. Maye maye.
Mahlale phansi bamba umthetho. The president still has to address us. Mahlale phansi bamba umthetho. Mahlale phansi bamba umthetho. Mahlale phansi bamba umthetho. Malibongwe. Malibongwe.
indeed, history has no blank pages, and will continue to celebrate these 70 years with style and happiness. Ne? Okay. Let me acknowledge our host, MEC of Sports, Arts and Culture and Education in Gauteng, Ntate Lebogang Maile, Mureki. Hey, because of gender, now remulibetsu re ke ena Mureki mo. Nka ba kadimile gender. And also acknowledge MEC of Sports, Arts and Culture from the Western Cape, Ntate Ricardo Mackenzie. Thank you very much. With powers vested in me, today is a special day. I will now call upon Honorable Ms. Togo Didiza, the Speaker of Parliament of the Republic of South Africa. Malibongwe! Madam Speaker.
Order. Thank you very much, our program directors, His Excellency the President of South Africa, Ndate Ramaphosa, Dr. Motsepe, our First Lady, who's among us here, a physician in her own right, a person who cares about reproductive health for women. I deliberately say this because most of the time, Mr. President, when women married to our men who are important, sometimes they are forgotten that they too are leaders in their own right. So it is not by mistake that I have to say this today. I also want to recognize our Istolande Siaparankwe Meso Fitibrain. I also want to recognize Me Plaches, the daughter of Mayor Diderix. Hoi hoi, our Premier Lesufi. Ministers and deputy ministers present among us, speakers of legislatures who are here present, our chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Metsipane, Mem Tweni Tsipane, our deputy ministers who are here among us. We saw their skill as they dance to the nice genre of our music. Members of Parliament, members of provincial legislatures, our councillors who are here, our mayors who are also here among us, the Premier of the Free State, who is also joining us, and other premiers who may be on the platform and watching us from wherever they are because of busy schedules. Members of the Diplomatic Corps, leaders of political parties, particularly leaders of Women's League of various parties, and in particular the ANC Women's League. I recognize the ANC Women's League because at various points in our struggle, they've led the unity of women, calling them to actually work together in intervening when it was not easy. The Federation of South African Women in 1954 amongst them. The Women's National Coalition in 1992 amongst them. But there are many others where we want to honor the Women's League and the role that we have played, and hope you will continue to play that role of unifying the women of our country. I also want to recognize the leaders of our faith, omama bomanyano nabefundisikazi abakhona phakathi kwethu. Ondlunkulu namakhosikazi amakhosi, abaholi bezinhlangano zabasebenzi, omama bonke abakhona lapha, odadewethu amantombazane, nawo wonke umuntu okhona kulomsebenzi omkhulu kangaka nalaba basekhaya ngiyanibingelela. It is indeed an honor and a privilege that we are all here to celebrate and honor the generation of women who led and participated in that historic march of 1956, which actually changed the course of our liberation struggle in our country. We are equally fortunate that as we do so, we have among us one of those women, young at the time, still here to look and reflect on how far we've gone in making sure that what they fought for has been realized. We honor and celebrate their bravery, their sacrifice, and their resilience. They took action in the midst of repression among a vicious system of apartheid. We honor and celebrate them for being able to appreciate that unity in diversity was necessary to advance their struggles. As we honor them, we also remember the first Women's Charter they crafted and adopted in 1954, April 17. Honorable President, the core goal of that charter was to address social and legal equity, to address welfare protection for women, to ensure that economic justice is actually attained, but also to ensure that equality is the matter that our country will not frown upon, but become part and parcel of who we are. 70 years on, Mr. President, we are delighted that the women who came after those trailblazers of 1956 continued with their struggles. Today, we have a constitution who you had the honor to draft and lead that ensured that the Equality Clause is at the core of our supreme law of the land. Today, our social and legal status as women is no more an issue for debate, but a reality. Our democratic parliament have produced legislation that empower women. Today, women are holders of public office and the administration. Women form part of our judicial system and their leaders. The president today, women are vice chancellors and head of our institutions of higher learning. Women are the heads of corporate and owners of businesses in their own right. Today, in the health sector, Mr. President, women are leaders, and some of them have led critical medical research that have improved the health of our citizens. Today, our law enforcement that we've seen marching and you taking the salute, many of them now today are women and they are leaders in their own right. Mr. President, we want to thank you on behalf of the ANC-led government since 1994, who ensured that the dreams of those women of 1956 become a reality. During your own tenure as president, you have lifted the concerns that women have raised with you. The scourge of gender-based violence has been declared a disaster that all of us, men and women, need to address. The issue of economic justice for women is one issue that you have taken an interest on. You committed your administration in ensuring that 40% of government procurement go to women. I hope ministers and deputy ministers seated here will make sure, and the directors general, that that 40%, Mr. President, you spoke about is a reality. Not only in national government or provincial government, Premier Lesufi, but also in our councils, where many of the procurement will be able to benefit ordinary women and small and medium enterprises. Your own selection, Mr. President, of ministers and deputy ministers have ensured that women are not just part of the national executive, but they hold important portfolios. Ubani owayazi ukuthi sizoba no minister ka-justice ongumama. Ubani owayazi ukuthi uminister ka-defense uzawuba umama osekela abaphethe zemajele ezezindlu ngibalani. And that has been in your time. But what is also more important is that you, even when you change a woman in the portfolio, you replace that woman with a woman. Because we've seen, Mr. President, that at times we reduce the numbers of women in these public offices because when there are vacancy, we then look at men. Nothing against men, but we're saying there is no complete society without women. Kodwa ke futhi, Mongameli, we are responsible to giving birth to you, look after you, and unfortunately, Pinden Hambe Eli, and we say farewell to you, but the homes don't die, they remain. I want to also celebrate, Mr. President, the passion you have had on education, and in particular, early child development, which has led to access for many girls and young women, and women in general, into continuing lifelong education. And this is an investment not only to women, but also in our society. While today our focus is on women, we cannot forget that women's struggles has always been inclusive. If you look at the Women's Charter of 1954, women said side by side with their men. This showed their foresight that no country can achieve its potential if one of our gender is left behind. Today, as we celebrate, we do not only celebrate but commit ourselves to continue the struggles that women face today. As women in the councils, in legislatures and parliament, we will continue to ensure that the laws and programs that we implement improve women and all those who are still vulnerable in our society. We make this solemn promise, Mr. President, not only to the generation that live today, but also the generation that comes after us. It has been the South African women who have also been part and parcel of leading the struggle for gender equality in our continent as part of the Pan-African Women Organization. It has been women of South Africa who were part of those women who actually went to Beijing in 1995, to look at how we can advance the struggle of gender equality globally. I'm happy that today, as we're here, members of the Diplomatic Corps from a number of countries are here to celebrate what South Africa has achieved. But this is also an important milestone where we need to look back how far we've implemented the plan of action adopted in Beijing 1995. Mr. President, it is indeed an honor as the head of the legislature to say thank you for the work that you have done, and you still got a lot of work to do to make sure that you become a champion for women's emancipation in our country. I thank you.
Malibongwe! Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Indeed, President, during your tenure, women ascended to strategic senior positions. I want to acknowledge and recognize two very short women and very powerful for the first time in the history of sports, arts and culture. I'm singling my DG out because she is the one responsible for coordinating all national days. Dr. Cynthia Khumalo, where are you? Please just stand and greet the people. Mureki wabareki, you guys. And of course we have DG, Yadi DG, boss Yadi DG, the
the woman who's behind the president, Membaleni, Uka Mebaleni. So if Mebaleni asabua next, nothing moves. Le yitin tweu. Asa confirm or president wata president hatsamai. So thank you very much, President, for making sure that women are also recognized as DGs. Earlier on, we had a celebration of different genres of music from the early 60s. And now we want to invite a cultural group. I hope they are ready so that the Asha Minister Chikunga, who will give us a message of support and end by inviting the president. A cultural group, Bomama, Rekopela Likene.
Your Excellency, President of the Republic of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, Dr. Tsepo Motsepe, the First Lady of South Africa and a leader in her own right, Isitwalandwe Mama Sophie Williams-De Bruyn, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Togo Didiza, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, in particular the Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Honorable Steve Litike, Honorable Members of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures, hosting Premier Honorable Panyaza Lesufi, and Premier of Free State Honorable Makwinli Tsoha Mataye, our premiers, MECs, mayors and councillors, leaders of our traditional and religious institutions, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, leaders of the Progressive Women's Movement led by Ms. Nokuthula Nqaba, leadership of the ANC Women's League, leadership of the ANC led by the DSG, Comrade Nomvula Mukunyane, organized labor and progressive federations, government representatives led by the DG Baleni, captains of industry, and special greetings to our veterans and stalwarts of the liberation movement on whose broad shoulders we continue to stand. To us, you are living monuments of our freedom. Special greetings to the resilient and unbreakable women of South Africa, both here in this arena and those watching from across the length and breadth of our country, we salute and honor you. We are here because you fought longer and harder against great odds and brought into being a more just and humane society. I say to all women, Happy Women's Day. Happy Women's Day. Happy Women's Month. And happy the year 2026, which is the Jubilee year. Happy to all our women, happy. History is a selective narrator. For centuries, it has remembered revolutions through the lens of anyone else but women. The year 2026 has permitted us a moment of counter-storytelling, enabling us to move beyond master narratives and to reveal that this South Africa train has run and continues to run on the blood, sweat, and tears of women whose story is yet to be told in full. 70 years ago, on the 9th of August 1956, more than 20,000 women of every race, language, faith, and background converged on the Union buildings in Pretoria, where we are today. These women gathered because injustice had become intolerable. Today, South Africa commemorates the Platinum Jubilee under the theme, Empowered Women, Empower Nations. Ukunika abesifazane amandla kwakha kuqinise izizwe. It is indeed an aspirational but equally a demanding theme. The theme, Empowered Women, Empower Nations, invites us to think beyond theory. Empowerment is measured by multiplication. An empowered woman does not fear another woman's brilliance. She cultivates it. She introduces emerging women to rooms they have never entered, and she shares networks rather than guarding them. She recommends another woman's name when no one else is watching. She corrects women privately and celebrates them publicly. She understands that leadership is not diminished by sharing influence. It is strengthened by it. History has never remembered leaders because they occupied an office. History remembers those who created possibility for others. Mam Lillian Ngoyi did not become extraordinary because she sought prominence. She became extraordinary because she organized women. Mama Helen Joseph did not become a symbol because she pursued comfort. She became one because she embraced sacrifice. Mama Rahima Musa did not leave us a legacy because she accumulated influence. She left one because she invested herself in justice. Mama Sophia Williams de Bruyn's greatness is measured by the decades she spent ensuring that the story of that march continues to inspire new generations. 70 years ago, these women did not know that history would remember their names. They did not march for commemorative months. They probably didn't even think that their 1956 march would form part of annual speeches. They marched because ordinary women decided that extraordinary courage was required, and indeed history rewarded their courage. Their lives ask us a profound question. If they could build movements under oppression, why do we sometimes struggle to build mentors and mentees under democracy? Perhaps because mentoring requires something appointment do not. Humility, ubuntu, and humanity. To mentor another woman is to accept that one day she may surpass us. To celebrate this possibility is the greatest and highest expression of confidence. The women of 1956 understood something. They did not march as individuals. They marched as a collective. Domestic workers stood beside teachers. Trade unionists stood beside nurses. Rural women stood beside professionals. Young women stood beside women with disabilities. African women marched with Indian women, colored women, and white women. Different languages, faith, but one purpose. This Women's Month called upon us to ask a different question. Not who is the most successful woman, but who is creating the most successful women. And these are not the same thing. The successful women celebrate achievement, which is important, but the other creates achievement. The successful women produces admiration. The other produces transformation. And the successful woman builds a career, and the other builds a generation. This year's theme, Empowered Women, Empower Nations, should be a national assignment. Empowerment is not complete when one woman succeeds. It is complete when her success becomes someone else's opportunity and someone else's success. This year's theme is inspiring. Empowered Women, Empower Nations calls on every woman in leadership to honestly examine what her contributions have been in building the next cadre of capable women and how far we still have to go. For history has taught us that leadership that serves only itself eventually destroys itself. As South Africans, we owe it to the women who marched before us to have the courage to ask difficult questions, have as empowered women, empowered other women, and of course, empowered women. The struggle for women empowerment and the struggle for women emancipation continues. Aluta continua. The leader, chairperson, program directors, we have at this point in time understand that no nation on earth can truly call itself free until its women are completely emancipated and empowered. A president who has been and continues to be committed to ensuring that the legacy of 1956 is fully realized in our economy, our laws, and our society. He has done so through such laws such as Public Procurement Act, the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act, the classification of gender-based violence and femicide, the appointment of the first woman Chief Justice of South Africa, and the appointment of the first woman Auditor General of South Africa, to mention but a few. It is indeed my honor and privilege to ask you to rise and join me in welcoming to the podium the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa.
Amandla. Forward with the women of South Africa, forward. Program directors, the ministers who are here present, the Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, Ms. Sindisiwe Chikunga, the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Mackenzie, the two of them who continue to play a key role in ensuring that our national events are as wonderful and as colorful and as celebratory as we have it today. Thank you very much for making this day such a great success. I will not take time to go through the protocol process. Safe to say, I extend my greetings to everyone who is here. The Speaker of the National Assembly spoke. The chairperson of the Council of Provinces, National Council of Provinces is here. We also have a guest, my dear sister Malala from Afghanistan, and we have our premiers who are here as well. Today is no ordinary commemoration. It is one of the most important days in our national calendar. National Women's Day is a day on which we honor the women of South Africa, but it is also a day of profound significance for our entire country. We started off by seeing how the women of our country are spread out in a number of agencies, the security agencies of our country, the police, the armed forces, as in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the various provincial security arms, as well as the municipal arms, and we saw how they were marching and displaying their capability. I often see this on Armed Forces Day, when women of our country demonstrate how well qualified they are not only to march, but to also bear arms, the heaviest guns that you can ever see. And what I always enjoy most is how they display precisely how they've developed a capability with their lipsticks on, red lipsticks, marching. And I saw a little bit of that today, and I just smiled with joy, because this is the new South Africa that we have built. So today, it is because the Women's March of 1956 was not a footnote in our struggle for freedom. That march helped to change the course, the character, and the leadership of the struggle for freedom and justice in our country. It demonstrated that women were not merely supporters of our struggle. They were its leaders, its organizers, and they were its authors. 70 years ago, at least as we've already heard, 20,000 women from across our country gathered here at the Union Buildings. They came to the very seat of apartheid power. Prime Minister J.G. Strydom chose not to receive them or to even meet them. He literally ran away as he saw them coming. I have not run away. I am here to receive all the women of our country. But his absence did not diminish the presence of these formidable and courageous women. The women left at his door petitions bearing more than 100,000 signatures. Then they stood in disciplined silence for 30 minutes. And this is one of the acts that I have always been most impressed by. How 20,000 women could stand in silence, not say a single word, not even move, but stand silently at this very site. It was a silence that was more powerful than any speech the apartheid government could have made. 70 years ago, these women gathered on the very grounds where we are, up there in the amphitheater. But their silence was not a silence of fear. They had come to confront a formidable power, armed to the teeth, formidable men who could have killed them and mowed them down. It was not a silence of submission. It was the silence of courage gathering its strength. It was the silence of women who knew that they carried the justice of their cause within them. For 30 minutes, there was no chant, no speech, and no cry. Yet their silence said everything that needed to be said. That silence also held the pain of every woman humiliated by the past laws. It held the anger of every mother whose family had been torn apart. It held the hopes of every daughter who dreamt of growing up free. It held all the words that apartheid refused to hear. The union buildings may have been quiet, but the conscience of a nation was being awakened. Their silence was not empty. It was a silence that was filled with dignity, with discipline, and with determination. It was louder than any command that could be issued by the apartheid state. It was a silence that unsettled the powerful. It inspired the oppressed, and it also echoed across generations, as it has continued to inspire us all across the generations since that march. Today, as we stand here where these women stood, we must remember those 30 minutes. We need to hear within that silence the footsteps of the 20,000 courageous women. And in that silence, they stood in their own honor, in their own dignity. And we need to thank them for that. And after they stood silent, then their voices rang out, "Wathinta bafazi, wathinta imbokodo." That is what they said. You have touched the women of our country, you have struck a rock. I always tell people that each time I receive heads of state here, there is a symbolism that we have put up there at the entrance of the union buildings as you go down the amphitheater. There are two rocks that clearly symbolize the march that 20,000 women embarked on. And those rocks symbolize that if you touch women, you have struck a rock and they will crush you. On that day, Prime Minister may have occupied the highest office in the land, but the real power was gathered on the lawns and in the amphitheater of the union buildings. We salute the 4 women who led that march. Umama Lillian Ngoyi, Umama Helen Joseph, Umama Rahima Musa, and Umama Sophie Williams de Bruyn, who is here with us today. We also salute Mama Lillian Hendricks. Dedricks, her daughter stood up here. We also want to say, Mama Sophie, you were only 18, as you correctly said, when you held those stacks of documents that had been signed by more than 100,000 women. We are deeply honored by your presence here today. We thank you for your courage, your lifetime of service, and your continuing witness to our history. And we thank you also for the message that you delivered here. We honor every woman who marched here with you, and you remember them all. We know that the names of some, but we do not yet have the names of all of them. We therefore welcome the work that is being done by the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation and the Sophia Henry de Bruyn Legacy Foundation through the Write Her Into Story campaign. We thank you because through the campaign you have started, you are restoring the names and the stories of the women of 1956 to our national memory. And I call on every family and everyone who knew any one of those women who marched, who took part in that march, to come forward and present their story, their memory to these two foundations, so that we can complete the roll call of courage and honor. So let us do so. I once met one of them who had worked in Helen Joseph's home, and she took time to tell me her own story, how she had, of her own volition, decided to join the march. She was a domestic servant, and she felt motivated to be part of that march. And I know that there will be many others across our country who may well have similar stories. So let us collect all those stories and write the true history of our country, because that march was not only historic, it was impactful. Let us ensure that history remembers not only the leaders who were in the forefront, but that it remembers the thousands who gave the march its strength. So let us come forward with whatever names. Fellow South Africans, the women of 1956 were protesting against passes, but their message reached far beyond the pass laws. They challenged the idea that women should be confined to the home, that women should be silenced, and that women should not participate in public affairs and should be subordinate to men. They challenged discrimination based on both race and gender. They made clear that no nation can be free while its women are not free. The march itself did not emerge from nowhere. It was part of a long tradition of the women of South Africa's resistance. Our mothers, our aunts, our grandmothers had always resisted the oppression they were subjected to. In 1913, women led by Umama Charlotte Maxeke rose in Bloemfontein against the imposition of passes. In the decades that followed, the women of our country organized in communities, in churches, and I was very pleased to see on the TV screen that we've got a number of religious leaders who are women amongst us. I extend my greetings to you and my respects. Yes, they came from factories, from farms, and trade unions. They resisted municipal beer halls, low wages, forced removals, and racial oppression. In 1954, the Federation of South African Women, the precursor to the ANC Women's League, and it's good to see that the progressive women of South Africa is here, and it's also pleasing to see the ANC Women's League here present in their large numbers. We thank you for being here. You have always been the key leaders of the unity of women, and you have always chanted the rights of women. And frankly speaking, much as I stand here as the President of the Republic, I cannot think of any other organization other than the ANC Women's League that has always led the struggle for the rights of women. So we applaud you as we applaud the women of South Africa. So in 1954, the Women's Charter was adopted. In 1955, those women carried their demands into the Congress of the People in Kliptown. They demanded, as women, that they too should have the right to vote. They demanded equal pay for equal work and equal opportunity in employment. They were the real spirit for demanding equal pay for equal work. They demanded equal rights in marriage. Wow. Even as they were married, they said, we want equal rights in marriage. Wow. They demanded equal rights in property, ownership. They demanded equal rights for the guardianship of children. And this had been given to men only. The women of 1956 said, we want it. They demanded education, childcare, housing, land, water, healthcare, and social security. They were in the forefront of demanding all these rights. They understood that freedom is not an abstract idea. Freedom must be present in the home, in the workplace, in the classroom, in the clinic, in the law, and in the economy. The petition presented here in 1956 declared that we shall not rest until we have won for our children their fundamental rights of freedom, justice, and security. So 70 years later, that pledge still frankly speaks directly to all of us. We have made undeniable progress. We have, as the Speaker of our National Assembly was reading the full list, we have made progress. 30 years ago, we adopted a constitution that recognizes and adopted the notion of non-sexism as a fundamental value of our democracy and guarantees every woman the right to equality, to dignity, to freedom, and bodily integrity. Women have the right to vote, to hold public office, to own property, and to also inherit, to choose whom they should marry, and to participate fully in every sphere of society. Women lead institutions that are vital to our democracy. The Speaker of the National Assembly read a whole list of them. Today, women serve as Chief Justice. Today, women serve as the Speaker of the National Assembly. Today, a woman serves as the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, as the public protector, as the Auditor General. Women are ministers. Women are deputy ministers. They are mayors. They are judges. They are traditional leaders. They are diplomats. They are soldiers and officers in our defense force. They are leading police officers. They are entrepreneurs. They are farmers. They are scientists. They are engineers. They are academics. They are vice chancellors of universities. They are artists. They are athletes. Women have made significant gains in higher education and continue to break barriers in fields that were once closed to women, but especially black women. So let us applaud the progress that has been made in advancing the interests of women. Now, these gains do matter, as the Speaker was saying. They were fought for. They must be defended. South Africa ranks highly on global indices, on global measurements for women's empowerment, including for gender parity, educational outcomes, financial inclusion, and political representation and decision-making. We are proud of how far we have come. We are proud to stand on the shoulders of giants of the Imbokodo of 1956. If they hadn't stood up for the rights that our women have today, we probably would not be where we are. Now, as a country, we have been consistent that there can be no human rights without women's rights. There can be no progress in society without the empowerment of women. This is something that I believe in firmly, and this is something that I have dedicated myself to work to achieve. The women of our country must be empowered fully and completely. And I also say to the men of our country, the empowerment of women does not mean that you are being disempowered. In fact, when we empower women, you must be proud that you too are being empowered, not only for doing it, but that we are strengthening South Africa. We are making South Africa whole. For we cannot achieve social justice without gender equality. This conviction is rooted in our commitment to building a South Africa that is united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous for all. Now, these achievements were not freely given. They were struggled for. And having attained our own freedom, it is also our duty to stand in solidarity with the victims of sexism and gender apartheid wherever they are. We are honored, therefore, to have with us today Ms. Malala Yousafzai, who paid a heavy price for her activism. A cruel ideology tried to silence her, but she rose to become one of the most strident voices for emancipation of women in our world today. And so we thank you for being here. we are honored to have you amongst us, and we welcome you. You became the youngest Nobel laureate in history, and it is because you stood for the rights of women, not only in your country in Afghanistan, but in the world as well. The struggles of women for equality and emancipation do not know any boundaries of geography, language, religion, race, color, or class. And the struggles of women are far from over. And that is why we must and will continue also to support the women in Gaza. We will continue to support the women who are being subjected to genocide in Gaza. We will continue to support the women in the Sudan who are also the victims of war as that war rages there. This year's theme is Empowered Women, Empower Nations. And we know that empowered women, girls and young women, empower South Africa. That means that we must work as a society to remove every obstacle that stands between a woman and her ambition. Women are more than half of the population, but they do not yet hold an equal share of our country's wealth, its land, or its enterprises. Too many women are without work. Too many women earn less than men at the moment for doing the same work. Too many carry the burden of caring for their families and households, labor that continues unrecognized and uncounted. This must change. The South Africa we live in must be the South Africa of the dreams of the women of 1956. As a government, we are working to change this. We're opening public procurement, as the speaker said, to women-owned businesses so that government spends more money empowering women and empowering women entrepreneurs. Through the Women Economic Assembly, we have been drawing women-owned businesses into the value chains of our major industries. We are widening access to finance, to credit, and to markets, and making sure that women are included. And we are ensuring that women hold title to the land that they work. It has given me great joy as we go around the country handing out title deeds to women, something that did not happen in the past. There can be no empowerment without education. Today, more women than men are enrolled in our universities and colleges. They excel even at school. And I must say that we're finding that women absorb education much more than men. And they excel, they get better results much more than men. And that is why we will concentrate on ensuring that we empower women without neglecting the boys. But too few of them enter into engineering, into science, into technology. We want to see more and more women into the STEM disciplines and artisanal trades, where so many of the opportunities of today lie. We want to see more and more young girls getting into those areas that have always been delineated as areas for men only. We must do more work to change that. We are bringing care closer to women in rural areas, on the farms, and in our villages. A woman who is skilled, who earns her own income, and who enjoys good health is a woman who is able to determine the course of her own life. That is the freedom we are working towards, to ensure that the women of our country stand as independent women, not reliant on the generosity of men. That will be real empowerment. We know too well that the women of our country will not be truly free until we rid our society of the violence that men perpetrate against women. In 1956, the women of our country lived in fear of being arrested for not having a pass. Today, women live in fear of gender-based violence that continues to stalk them in the streets of our country, in the pathways of our villages, and in their own homes. Violence against women and children is not confined to any one particular community. It affects the rich, the poor, the young, and the old, black and white as well. That is why we have classified gender-based violence and femicide as a national disaster. We did so that we could harness all the resources and capabilities of the state to end these crimes. Yes, classifying the gender-based violence and femicide as a national disaster must mean that we will deploy more resources, must mean that government departments will become more focused in fighting gender-based violence. This we shall do, this we shall enable, this we will work on. So yes, my dear sister Nokuthula, even as you march to Treasury, the message that you have delivered has been heard. We will deploy resources. We have heard that message. We have also established the National Council on Gender-Based Violence, because gender-based violence and femicide is not a woman's problem. It is a problem of society. It is a problem of violent men. Overcoming this scourge, therefore, demands that men and boys must step forward and say, "Not in my name." More and more men must stand forward and say, "I shall not lift a hand against any woman, be it my wife, my lover, my sister, my mother, my grandmother, that I shall respect them, I shall honor them, and I shall assist them and empower them." So they must say clearly, "Not in my name." This demands that men and boys must be part of the solution. We must prevent this violence, as we are doing, by working with young men, with the support of traditional and community and religious leaders. We need to steer men away from behaviors as well as mindsets that breed violence against women. We need to break the silence that renders us complicit in this crime. It is not only the perpetrators of such acts that are guilty, it is also when we choose to look away. The guilty include those who seek to condone or to justify gender-based violence on the grounds of culture or religion or patriarchal social norms. There is no justification whatsoever for sexual harassment, for physical or mental abuse, for rape or for murder. Not how women dress or how they behave. That cannot be a justification. Not because some favor is given to them, not because they leave a relationship, and not because they are a junior employee, not because they believe themselves equal to men. Violence against women and children is not a personal matter. It is a crime. And we must insist and make it clear to all men that violence against a woman is a crime here in South Africa. And that is how we will continue to deal with it. And we can no longer remain silent. Today, we call on all of society to join in to combat this scourge so that South Africa's women can enjoy the most fundamental freedom of all, freedom from fear. Even in the midst of hardship and devastation, we must enable the women of our country to rise, to feel fully empowered. This year's commemoration places particular emphasis on empowering women's access to quality health care. This is fundamental to equality, dignity, and freedom. Quality health care for women means that every woman must receive care regardless of her income or where she lives or whether she has a disability. It means safe pregnancy and childbirth, dignified reproductive health care, and access to family planning. It means that girls and young women have the knowledge and the services they need to prevent infection. It must mean expanding vaccination and screening to prevent cervical cancer and ensuring timely treatment when illness is detected. It must mean that survivors of sexual or domestic violence are treated with compassion, with care and understanding and privacy and respect. It must also mean bringing care closer to women in our rural areas, on the farms and in informal settlement. A woman who is healthy, a woman who is educated and safe and economically independent is better able to determine the course of her own life. By investing in women's health, we are essentially investing in the health, the productivity, and the growth of our economy as well. Yet we know that no account of women's freedom in South Africa can avoid the terrible reality of gender-based violence. Last year, as I said, we took real steps to ensure that we will make real progress when it comes to dealing with gender-based violence. This has enabled us to produce visible and measurable change. Gender-based violence, in the end, is a matter that all of us must deal with seriously. The struggle for women's freedom really, as I said, has no borders. We must therefore ensure that as we deal with it, we support women in various places on our continent and globally as well. So in the end, this day must be a day of real empowerment for the women of our country. And as a government, we must continue to say and to promise to the women of our country, yes, we will ensure that South Africa continues to respect your rights. We will continue to uphold your rights as women, and we will foster equality between men and women. And we will focus on empowering the young women and girls in our country, and that we will, in the end, empower you as the women of our country economically and focus on your economic empowerment so that you may be independent, so that you may be able to care more fully for your children. This is what we are able to say to you. And South Africans know what it means when it says that we need to utilize the rights that are contained in our Constitution to advance your rights and to advance your interests. This is something that we will continue to work on. In government, we are also ensuring that as we appoint people in various institutions and structures, we focus on ensuring that there is a balance between men and women. Long are the days gone where structures of government will only be dominated by men alone. We will ensure that women do become part of those structures. In fact, in cabinet, as we look at how we can foster the empowerment of women, we always say, as we appoint people to various positions, is there a balance between men and women? When a minister brings a proposal where there is no such balance, we send them back and say, go back and make sure that you go and find women who are capable, who will be able to do this work. I know for a fact that the party that I lead, it is a must, it is a policy that every structure must be 50-50. If it is not a legitimate structure. So in the end, this is a culture that today, 70 years later, we say we want it to be infused in South African culture. As a country, we are leaders in a number of areas of empowerment of women. And today, I'd like to say, yes, we will continue with precisely that leadership position. Because the women of 1956 did not come here to be praised. They came here to march, to demand their right. So in the end, they were a generation that demanded their rights, and each generation must answer the question posed by the women of 1956. Will we fear the power of women, or will we build our nation with the power of women? Will we ensure that the answer is found in our laws, that our laws continue to empower women, that our budgets, the budget that we pass, continues to be a budget that empowers women, that our institutions will be institutions that continue to endorse the empowerment of women, that in our homes and in our conduct towards one another, we continue to empower the girls and young women of our country. So I'd like to end by saying, today let us honor the women of 1956 by delivering the future for which they marched to this place. We commit to build a South Africa in which no woman's potential is limited by poverty, by prejudice, by violence or discrimination, or where she comes from. We will build a nation in which women are equal in law, equal in opportunity, equal in safety, and equal in power. Watinta bafazi, watinti mbogoto must be our clear message. The women of South Africa have shaped our freedom, and we thank them for having shaped it. Today, we thank the women of South Africa for continuing to build this country and for continuing to keep us on the path of true empowerment, of making sure that we open all opportunities and all avenues so that they too should feel that they are as equal citizens as men are in our country, that they are as empowered as men are in our country. This is a commitment that we need to make to the women of South Africa. So I say to the girls who are growing up, the young women who are coming to the fore, you are coming and you will live in a South Africa where we have committed to fully empower you. So fear not. This is your South Africa. This is the South Africa where you should show leadership. Together, we will shape our future. So thank you very much, and a happy Women's Day to all of you.
Oh, mono, mono. Platoon. March past. Yeah, yeah, yeah.